Okay, Harmony, verification of quorum.
Okay, Director Nathan?
Here.
Director Berringham?
Here.
Director Odell?
Here.
Director Poland? President Welty?
Here.
5 present, quorum met.
Okay, can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes?
I make a motion with a correction, please. The correction is on item 6.6, 28-day reading for rule revision PC 8.4. I voted no.
Do I hear a second?
I agree, and I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, public official comment. Were you going to do the presentation? Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, we're going to have a presentation today from EVMWD, and they're going to talk about water quality and proposed state changes. Thank you guys for coming and informing the community. We appreciate it.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here today, President Welty and members of the board. My name is Bonnie Woodrum. I'm with the Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. I'm joined this evening with Director Darcy Burke, who represents this area, our General Manager, Greg Thomas, and one of our Water Quality Administrator, Mike Ali. And we're here this evening to share some information about a constituent called PFAS and its relation to drinking water. So we came here to kind of update everyone on the issue, give you a little more information. Thank you, Lynn, for helping me out with this tonight. So a little bit about Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. We're committed to providing our customers reliable, high-quality drinking water 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We thoroughly test and treat our water 17,000 times per year to ensure that it meets some of the highest water quality standards in the world. Recent news headlines from across the country and a major motion picture are warning about perfluorocol and polyfluorocol chemicals known as PFAS in our drinking water. State and federal legislators are grappling with this emerging constituent and the ever-evolving science around it. Right now, we have more questions than we have answers about this chemical. So, what are PFAS and where are they found? PFAS are a family of 6,000 man-made chemicals used in manufacturing because of their heat and water-resistant properties. PFAS are found in thousands of products that we use every single day, including clothing, shampoo, non-stick cookware, cleaning products, carpets, firefighting foam, paint. Did anybody order a pizza this weekend for the Super Bowl? It could have been in your pizza box or in your fast food wrappers. Scientists have found it also in microwave popcorn bags and even your dental floss. PFAS are in everything that we use. Water districts don't put these chemicals into water, but over time they have entered our waterways through manufacturing, landfills, and wastewater effluent. And while PFAS manufacturing in the United States has come to an end, PFAS are still being manufactured abroad. State and federal regulations are increasing and quickly changing to ensure that PFAS levels in waters are managed in a transparent and responsible manner. And these guidelines are evolving, and we anticipate there to be changes in 2020. EVMWD has provided the state with data about our water supplies to assist in this process. In California, the Department of Drinking Water measures PFAS in parts per trillion. So we can kind of give you an idea of what that actually means. When we're talking about drinking water, that's in the low parts per trillion, single to double digits. So I want you to imagine the Rose Bowl Stadium filled with water. If I drop one single drop in the Rose Bowl Stadium, that is 1 part per trillion. Notification levels for the state of California require water districts to notify officials if water exceeds 5 drops in the Rose Bowl. So that kind of gives you a perspective there. Next slide. Water supplies across the state are being tested, and currently all the water that EVMWD provides our customer meets state guidelines for PFAS. In our testing for PFAS, 2 were above the state's notification level. That's the slide that I mentioned to you, the amount I mentioned to you before. 0 were above the response level. The US EPA has set a health standard of 70 parts per trillion as a response level. Currently, the state of California is considering lowering that response level. One of the challenges we face is a lack of scientific consensus and differing state and federal guidelines. And as we navigate this complicated situation, we are asking you to join us in the effort as we reach out to our residents and ratepayers about this complicated issue. Treating water with PFAS is not a simple fix, but EVMWD does have a team committed to developing a plan to address all aspects of the emerging PFAS issue, and we remain committed to transparently sharing up-to-date information about this topic with you. We are exploring treatment options to determine which methods perform best and which is most cost-effective. If state response levels are lowered, we could see a financial impact. Our job at EVMWD is to ensure that customers receive clean, high-quality drinking water that meets all state and federal guidelines. And while we didn't play a role in putting PFAS into the water, we are actively committed to developing a solution. So we want you to learn more and stay connected with us. We have current information on our website, evmwd.com/PFAS, about this subject matter. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter for up-to-date information. We'll continue to come and visit the board and keep our customers aware of information also through our newsletter. We have handouts available for you this evening. They are outside the front door, and we encourage you to take them, read them, and let us know if you have any further questions. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have this evening.
Thank you very much. If you said this, I didn't hear you, but
Sure.
is there any legislation pending right now to lower those levels?
There is. So the US EPA has the level set at 70 parts per trillion, and the state is now considering lowering that to 40 parts per trillion for the PFOA, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the PFOS, and 10 for the PFOA. That's okay. So significantly lowering.
Okay, and that is within California, and there's a bill now on the floor of one of the houses to do that?
Yes, so the Department of Drinking Water is right now, we are in the midst of them considering changing that level to a much lower level. But we don't have a scientific consensus yet with that change, so we're unsure at this point what that's going to look like.
So I understand that. Does the Water Department have the ability to change that, or does that have to go through the legislature?
It does have to go through legislature, and
Okay.
we are working with... I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
Regulatory. I'll have you...
I'm sorry.
Regulatory change, not legislative change.
Okay, so the department can make the change?
Yes, they can.
Okay, very good. And then what level are we at right now when you do the testing?
So I'll have Mike come up to address the levels that we're currently at.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the board. So EVMWD currently has 2 sources above the notification levels and 0 above the response levels. The 2 sources are in the 20s, so lower to mid-20s is what the levels are in those 2 sources for PFOA.
So what is the notification level? Is it?
The notification level currently is at 5.1 for PFOA and 6.5 for PFOS, and the response level is at 70.
So what I'm trying to get a handle on is how close we are to having a real significant issue here for EVMWD. And if we're at 6 or 7 and they lower it to 40, It sounds like we're not in any immediate problem with that.
We are not so for the two sources that are above the notification levels, we are in the 20s.
I can't understand that word. I'm so sorry. I can't hear.
Okay.
What'd you
So our
say?
levels are in the 20s,
20s.
20.
Okay, thank you.
And this is drinking water.
That's
This is-
correct.
And theoretically, you could mix clean water with the 20 and lower the number down.
And that is a strategy EVMWD utilizes at some of the sources.
So that has potential. So in some ways, we're on edge, waiting for a final decision, and then we have to make the best of that decision. So we talked drinking water. How about body contact? Is there any sort of body contact standard out there?
So the State Water Resources Control Board is looking at different pathways of exposure to animals and humans. We are not aware of a body contact regulatory level at this stage. The focus is primarily on drinking water.
Okay. Any other questions? We have a gentleman in the crowd. I think it would be okay if you came up and shared the microphone for a minute.
Real quick, so what would be the corrective action if we get at that level?
If we could get you on the mic, that way the people at home could hear. We all hear. You have a great voice, so I don't have a problem.
Just quickly ask, what would be the corrective action if we hit these levels?
So we have several options. We, as Mike spoke of, we could blend water. We could also use just imported water instead of the local water that we have available. There's also treatment methods. They can be very expensive that we are looking into. So that's the activated carbon, and there's a few other methods that they'd be able to look at. But all that would need to be taken into consideration once those levels are decided.
I believe you said that we're not manufacturing those PF any longer as they're
Correct.
being done overseas. Is there an expectation that this level's going to rise considerably in the next few decades, or is it going to start to go back down, or what's the expectation?
Well, I think they're doing, the government's doing its best to manage that by not manufacturing those particular chemicals anymore in the United States. But as long as we're importing, we may see them here. So I think at this point, everybody's trying to do what they can to eliminate those from our environment, but they are known as forever chemicals, so they will be around for quite a while. Anything else?
Okay, that looks like all the questions. Thank you for coming. I always
Thank
like
you
to
very
have you
much.
guys come up and tell us about what we're drinking, and especially on how it affects our lake. And so thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we're on to item 5, the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull any of the consent agenda items? Okay, then do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
I'll make a motion to approve consent items 5A through D.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any board comment? Any comments from the members?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Steve, come on up and tell us about park smoking areas being listed.
Good evening. So staff and the Recreation Committee have worked to try to reduce trash on our beaches and in the lake. Another goal is to reduce smoking on our family-friendly beaches. 4 locations for this were chosen: Holiday Harbor, Indian Beach, Sierra Park, and Sunset Beach. A smoking area sign and a cigarette litter receptacle commonly seen in public areas would be placed where shown as unattached to the board action item. This was also recommended from the Recreation Committee. The fiscal impact is less than $500 and be come from the operating fund. Staff requests the Board of Directors approve the smoking areas of the 4 listed parks. So there at Holiday Harbor, on the right-hand side there, up against Village Way, underneath the shade tree, away from the building and playground area. This is Indian Beach. We just filled in that dirt area there next to the parking lot. That's actually all parking lot, so our proposed location is down there at the very end. Approximately 35 feet away from usable beach area and 65 feet away from our the backyard or the property line from our property to the nearest home. This is Sierra Park. It is right there located near the beach, but that beach is not used that much by residents, and it's approximately, I think, 35 feet away from the 32 feet away from the building. And then the last is Sunset Beach. This is the hardest one, just because of all the areas that are used. That one where the cursor is over near the pool, that's actually already there. We implemented that a long time ago just because of smoking at the pool. However, the one right there at the corner of the parking lot we felt that's the best area to go in, keep it away from the tennis courts and keep it off the beaches and away from the playground. And again, our goal is to just reduce the amount of smoking on the beaches and also the cigarette butts and cigarette litter that ends up on the beaches and sometimes in our lake.
Can you comment a little bit about the cigarette butts on the beaches and the effort it takes to keep them clean?
So operational staff, that we do raking of the beaches quite often. We not only is it cigarette litter, but there's a lot of cigarette butts, especially in the summertime where the beaches are heavily used. And then also just the common trash that you'll find is bottles and cans and plastic bottles and such. But we feel that if we put an ashtray or smoking receptacle near the beach, maybe we'd get the majority of people to use it and reduce the trash on the beaches that we all have to look at, families have to look at, kids playing, and then also help reduce the staff time and maintenance on the beaches.
Any other questions for Steve?
Yeah, isn't it also a law that we have to have no smoking next to parks, et cetera, 25 feet away from play areas and that whole thing? So this isn't just to reduce litter, but it's also to adhere to the non-smoking requirements?
It is also a law that is on the California books, correct, for public areas.
And I'm sorry, one more thing. So at Sunset Beach, it's just the one location that you're looking at? Or is it
Correct.
both? Just this one up in the upper corner?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I move approval of the recommended smoking locations.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And I do have one member comment, if I may. Kathy Mulcahy.
Am I on?
You read, yes.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Kathy Mulcahy, 3868189. I'm actually here on behalf of my clients that bought the house directly adjacent to Indian Beach. So if you were to go back to that picture, you can stop. I can't stop. Yeah, that's it. Their house is directly to the left. All their windows and doors face directly out to that smoking area, and they have asked me to come and speak for them quickly. They think that that is really going to create some noxious fumes for them, and it creates a nuisance. They think that it's going to ruin the quiet enjoyment of their property. And he also thought that by asking people to smoke away from the playground, creating a spot where parents have to go away from their kids in the playground in the lake, that would create some liability. But they're just asking if you could please move that, because they really do feel that it's going to impact their life and their property. Thank you.
Any comments from the board?
I assume that we are, if this turns out to be a serious problem, something that really is what they are concerned about, we're 65 feet away, there's some feeling that it's not going to turn into a problem. But if it does, I assume that we can revisit this and make a change?
Steve, moving the object, moving the smoking area is not difficult, is it, or is it difficult?
No, it's not difficult. It's just a signpost and a common cigarette receptacle or cigarette butt receptacle.
Are there other good options in the park?
We can kick it back to Recreation Committee. I mean, this is what we came up with. We've walked the parks. It's kind of where it would be the best feasible one, but the board can kick it back to Recreation Committee.
So we could, as the board, approve the other locations and send this back to Rec. And it's pretty simple for you just to put it in a new place, too. There's no hurry. I mean, it's not going to create a problem delaying that one.
No, we would not.
Okay. Do I hear a motion? Do we have a second? To make a subsidiary motion, and that's that we approve the other parks other than Indian Beach, and we send the Indian Beach location back to Rec and see if they can come up with another location.
I'm okay with that.
But if Rec comes back and says this is the best location, then we'll proceed?
We can do that, yes. I'll go with that. So you in the subsidiary motion, you want to include that language, that if Rec can't find another recommendation, this one goes ahead?
Please.
Okay. We have a Harmony, we have a first and a second?
We do on your subsidiary motion.
Any more comment? All in favor?
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, is Mary here, or we have somebody taking Mary's place? Oh, Lynn gets to take Mary's place. And this is a
Good
rule
evening.
revision?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so the current, I'll just read the background. The current rule being used for for a gate runner, GR 6.9A, the Appeals Committee has made a recommendation to change the rule to specify running the gate and would like to start using GR 6.1C2. All drivers entering this community shall be authorized specifically by name. No persons driving a motor vehicle may enter or drive upon Canyon Lake streets without possessing a valid driver's license. Picture ID is required for access. Refusal to show or not in possession of driver's license or government-issued ID violates identification policy with the attached addition. So on here, she has the current rule, GR 6.19, and then the committee has made a recommendation for the modified rule as attached in your book.
Len, this was on a 28-day reading. Did we receive any comments?
I believe so, that it's been on a 28-day reading. Yes, this is up for approval. Oh, this is not for,
We considered it last month.
my apologies, we're going to double check.
Well, I looked and I saw that it was. I just was curious if anybody contacted the office about the rule.
I am not aware of that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions for Lynn? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the revision to Rule GR.6.1C.2 Gate Runner and include the language entering without showing.
I'll second.
Any member comment or?
No.
Okay, any board comments? Okay, do I have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
All right, Corey, you get to come up. Another rule revision, membership meeting and voting rules. Okay.
Good evening. So this was presented last month as a 28-day reading and is now up for approval. I'll just read the background again. So these new election rules are to comply with changes in California law affecting the way membership votes in homeowner associations are to be conducted. Requirements include new deadlines, address verification tasks and mailings, candidate qualifications, member voting qualifications, inspector of elections qualifications, and record-keeping obligations. The law requires our association to adopt election rules consistent with these new requirements. The board has consulted with association legal counsel to develop election rules that comply with the new requirements of the new law, which will work in a practical way for our association. These election rules will apply to elections of directors as well as any other official votes by the membership. So the recommendation to the board is to approve to revise these rules, GR 1.5 through 1.5F, as attached.
Okay, any questions for Corey from the board?
Corey, same question I asked Lynn. Did we receive any comments from any members on the rule?
I did not receive any, no.
Thank you.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move approval of rule revision GR 1.5 to GR 1.5F, membership meeting and voting rules.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any member comments?
No.
Any board comments? I guess my comment is this is really driven by state law. State law said you have to change your rules, so we as the HOA are going to follow the state laws and change our rules. So that's the basic thing here. So, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
And Cheryl, you're up. You get to come up and visit with us for a minute. This is a 28-day reading.
That is correct. We're asking for a 28-day reading approval for PC 5.2. It's for single/multiple stories. And what the reason for this is the CC&R provides guidance to the ACC committee concerning habitable floors. The ACC committee has always used unwritten standard for interpretation of the CC&R, which has not been questioned for almost 50 years. At present, we have actually had a couple of the membership that is now questioning what does it mean to have a multiple story, or what does floors mean. So every dwelling constructed on the lot shall contain that a minimum square feet of fully enclosed floor area which is devoted for living purposes, and each dwelling shall be of single-story construction, provided, however, that a split-level or two-story residence may be constructed on lots where, in the opinion of the ACC committee, the terrain of such lots lends itself to such construction. I did a little bit of research on the internet to see whether or not I can come up with a definition of what a story is, and as listed in www.answers.com, a story on a house is only official if it is above grade. A basement does not count as a story. To have a two-story house, it has to have two levels above the grade, such as a main floor and an upper floor. A walkout basement does not count. Two-story or 1.5, if the home has a dormer or a gable end, and that includes windows, then the definition is a 1.5 story or considered a split level. In other words, there is a loft or a living space between the ceiling on the first story and on the roof line. In traditional two-story homes, you will have a full 8-foot or taller walls throughout the entire floor. A split-level home is a style of house in which the floor levels are staggered. The purpose of me wanting to give you the definitions of the two is because the committee has the ability of approving up to a two-story above-grade home. So what we're trying to do now is to find what does that mean. So it is recommended the Board of Directors approve a 28-day reading for a revision to PC 5.2, single multiple stories as attached. And there is no fine that equates with this particular rule.
Okay, any questions for Cheryl?
I'll use an example and tell me what this is. Inspiration, severe downhill lot. So the curb level usually is about the same as the roof level of the house. How do we define a 2- or 3-story house that's down below the curb level?
That's the purpose of this rule, because in order for us to be able to maintain what the CCNRs are telling us to maintain, we cannot have any more than 2 stories. And that means from the curb going up. So it does not mean anything from the curb going down. So you can have, depending on the level of where it's at, and it doesn't go below the 1397.5, you could have as much as a 4-story house, which I believe there's some of them on Inspiration.
Okay, no more questions. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the 28-day reading for revisions to rule number PC.5.2, single and multiple story residences.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any member comments, Harmony?
No.
Any board comments?
I just had one question, Cheryl. Sorry you walked away. Do we have houses now that have been built that don't comply with this rule?
Not that have been approved by the committee. So what I mean by that, a house can be up to 40 feet. So that's the standard by the ordinance of the city. If you were to look in by 40 feet standards, that could actually be 2.5 to 3 stories. So, but by the definition of what we approve, no, we have not approved anything over the 2 stories.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no more comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
All right, this will be Lynn Jensen, resanction of Canyon Lake clubs.
Hello again. Good evening. So this is the final month that we are bringing the large group of club resanctioning back to the board. So as in previous months, background for those that haven't heard this, the POA, we sent out letters multiple times to the clubs requesting information to get resanctioned for the next 3 years. In the letter, it included the items that had to be submitted, which was the application, damage agreement, gate access agreement, roster, bylaws, meeting minutes, and a letter of community service. So attached in the packet are the list of clubs that have submitted for this month. There is one clarification from last month's list. I left on a couple of folks that had already gone to the board for last month. So from items 21 to 26 on your list, those were reviewed last month for the board. But it's recommended that you review the attached list and make a recommendation for approval contingent upon confirmation of membership roster. For the clubs in the audience, staff's been contacting pretty much everybody again over the last month and a half just to make sure we have everything. We've holded off on sending out the notification letters because we wanted to get everybody's packets finalized, then we'll be notifying the clubs. Staff's been taking the event calendar as it's coming because we know people have things on the schedule, so we're hoping to finish this in the next few weeks. And then the clubs that did not meet the requirements, we would be notifying those also individually. So that's the request. Thank you.
Any more questions for Lynn?
So Lynn, it's been a couple of months we've been approving conditionally applications. Have any of those been reviewed, and are there any that don't meet the requirements?
They all have been reviewed, well, except for this month's list, everybody's been reviewed for their rosters, and we've been reaching out to people to request additional information. There are some groups that are not going to qualify, and we'll be notifying them. Some of them already have an idea because they just don't have the requirements. So, yes, if that answers your question.
I know there's been some concern expressed to me about whether a club has actually achieved its sanctioning status or not. And the fact that we had voted to approve conditionally means that they really haven't achieved that status?
Correct.
If they want to get an answer, is it possible to get an answer to that?
Yes, we can. We have talked to a few of them, and that we did have everything, and we know that they were pretty good to go on their packet, but Samantha from Activities has contacted just about all the clubs again because a lot of them were missing information, so it was still pending. But I felt sending one letter to everybody, well, individual letters once we got done would be better than trying to chase down information and keep sending out approval letters. So we've held off on sending those and just dealt with the calendar as it's occurred.
I think it's caused some confusion and concern.
Sure.
And I think it would be very helpful if the people that have been approved could be notified.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, make a motion that the Board of Directors approve the request to resanction or resanctioning of Canyon Lake clubs, and as attached, it's rows 29 through 34. And those clubs are Travel Club, Bassmasters, Equestrian Club, Canine Dog Owners Club, Street Carts, and Yacht Club. The approval is contingent upon confirmation of the club's membership roster verification, community service requirements, and submission of the club's financials. Okay, and it'll be a period of 3 years, 2020 through 2022.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any member comments?
Yes, Nancy Horton?
So this is resanctioning of clubs that have been in this community for a long time. But what is the procedure now for clubs that are new, that are applying for the very first time? Do they also have to comply in the same time frame?
Do you want me to answer that? So we did receive 2 applications packets for the new clubs. Those will be coming to the board, and they've submitted their packets. They were not included because this was just the resanctioning group.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
The club that I'm aware of, Helping Hands, submitted a packet but hasn't heard back anything as to whether they need more information. It would just be helpful to get a response saying the packet has been received.
Okay.
And we're working on it. That would help. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other member comments then?
No, sir.
Any other board comments?
I actually have a comment, and I want to preface this by saying I'm a dog lover. I walk my dog every day, etc. But I do have a concern on the Canine Dog Owners Club on the lack of club bylaws. I think that's a pretty big issue. They're the only ones that haven't submitted that part of the package. And I think, Tom basically mentioned confirmation of roster, confirmation of financial, and confirmation of community service.
I did happen to look through the packets today, and there was bylaws in there for that particular club, but they are still missing a couple of other items. So we'll be contacting everybody that's missing information.
Okay, but they did submit their bylaws.
I believe I saw bylaws in that particular club.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
it says no on here.
Oh, my apologies. We did not update it. There was a note, and so I looked through them, but you had already gotten your packet. So.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, and to the audience, that's why I say there was a lot of the clubs gave us majority of the packets, but they were missing things, and then we realized that we didn't ask for the financials. We only asked for the letter of community service, so folks have been getting that information to us. So that's why we kind of gave everyone a little bit of time through this 3-month process just to try to get everyone's packet as complete as possible.
Lynn, when do you expect we're going to close the door and say these are the sanctioned clubs?
Well, since we only have just a few rosters left to verify, hopefully we can finish it this week and get the letters drafted and sent out, and then we would have to contact the groups that didn't have everything and work on that process. And the clubs that just didn't submit, we would notify them they're no longer sanctioned.
Okay, and my next question, as you can imagine, is what happens to a club that's not sanctioned?
Well, do you want me to talk about the activities sanction club policy?
I'd like you to, yeah.
Okay, so staff's been working on modifying the sanction club policy. So one of the looming questions and part of why this project has been on and off again over the last several years is the function of sanctioned clubs is greatly appreciated in the community. However, not all of them qualify under the current sanctioned club policy. So staff's been modifying that policy to create a secondary group, which we're calling an activity group or activity club. And that would allow benefit to some of these groups that just don't meet the criteria. Maybe they don't function as a organization where they have meetings, they don't provide community service, but they're an activity group that hosts some sort of regular activity at one of the common areas. So we've been looking at modifying that to include use of the facilities as designated for these particular groups. So we're wanting to bring that to the board in March for review and approval, and then those groups that do not qualify, they would essentially automatically fall into this activity group category. And we would contact them about their scheduling, their calendar requests, and then any special requests would have to be taken on a case-by-case basis. You're welcome.
Any more board comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, and this Carrie, didn't I see her?
Carrie's not here. I guess I'm
Oh,
Carrie,
Lynn,
Mary,
you're on
and
the
Lynn
top of the-
today. Hi.
It's Lynn.
Hi, good. Okay, so staff and I and the Fiesta Day Committee have reviewed essentially what we had a Fiesta Day guidelines and a policy and staff tasks, and it was a quite lengthy document, so staff went through, made some modifications, took it to the committee. They made some recommendations, and what we have submitted in the packet is what's been recommended by the committee and staff to update it. We've taken out some of the staff tasks. As many of you know, it's a humongous holiday here, or event here, essentially a holiday, that takes a lot of planning, and so we needed to have some specific things in this policy. So we're asking that the board review and approve the attached 28-day reading for the revised Fiesta Day guideline and policy as attached. If you have any questions?
Okay, no questions for Lynn? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I make motion the Board of Directors approve the 28-day reading of the revised Fiesta Day guideline and policy as attached, effective today, February 4, 2020.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, any more board comments? Okay, all in favor?
Just a question for Lynn. As I understand it, this is really reflective of how Fiesta Days is being run now,
Yes, sir, that is correct.
so that there shouldn't, I say this with a smirk, there really shouldn't be any surprises when folks go through here and read this. This is what it
No,
looks like.
this has been reviewed by the committee a few times, actually, and there was input provided from them, so there's not really significant change that the community would see. We removed a lot of the staff tasks out of here and just put specific related to the committee and the POA overall.
Good, thank you very
Yes, sir.
much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Any member comments? Harmony, did we?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, we're moving into our member comments on non-personnel issues. I don't know if you know this, Harmony's sitting there and she has a sign-in sheet. Do we have more outside?
Yes, they're outside, and I don't have any at the moment.
So we don't have anybody want to get a slip real quick and make any member comments? Wow, it's a quiet group. Must be cold outside, right? Everybody wants to
No,
know.
we are doing such an extraordinary job.
Wow, I have to write this down. Okay, No member comments. We're going to move on to report of executive session. Lynn, you're back up. You should be in the middle tonight.
Good evening, Board. Good evening, members. Today's executive session was called to order at 11:01 a.m. Items discussed on the agenda included 3 member-related items. An update was provided from legal. There were 6 third-party contract agreement discussion items and 1 personnel matter discussed. The meeting concluded today at 5:10 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, association reports. Eric?
Good evening. As usual, I'll refer all of you to the department reports in your agendas. There's a lot of good information in there. A few highlights this month. 2 sets of old and failing stairs at the country club were replaced with new concrete treads. That's been long overdue. We recently purchased and installed 4 new stationary radar speed limit signs. I'm sure you've probably seen those out there, and they've already doing an effective job of traffic calming. The pavement project is about halfway complete. We completed the Eastport parking lot and launch ramp area by the pickleball courts and basketball courts last week. There's a small area by the pickleball courts that needs to be seal coated, and that'll be done along with some other larger areas. But that was a big portion of the paving project that's now done. We're a little bit over halfway. We'll be starting on the first of 4 phases here at the Lodge parking lot this month. There's about a third of the contract is in this area alone. So this is a large project, and we tried to find a window that would fit all the fluid schedules, and we'll be starting, like I said, in a couple weeks. The pool deck, also here on this property, has been demolished. We will be replacing the entire concrete pool deck and replastering the 20-year-old pool. That's moving right along. If you look back there right now, you see what used to look like a pool and mostly dirt. So that's a pretty good sized project, but also long overdue for a 20-year-old pool. We recently completed the Eastport Monument sign, and we'll be adding a matching one on the other side, on the Eastport Market side. The one on the south side is complete, except for a little bit of landscaping, and that'll be coming soon. We also completed the monument sign and the water feature at the Country Club, and next will come landscaping of all the planters in the new parking lot and around that monument sign. We started work today on modifying and upgrading the small dog park, and we'll be putting out some communication and a fact sheet on what that project entails with some renderings. You should see that probably tomorrow. Meeting with staff, and we had a meeting with staff in the city and our engineers and consultants to go over the final requirements for the pump track project. Our consultants have now been given a list from us and the city of all the specific requirements that are going to be required for plan check and to pull a permit, a grading permit, and to get that project started. And so they have a to-do list of things that need to be added to the plans in order to submit those. And as soon as that's complete, we will be submitting those plans to the city for a grading permit. And the golf course pond and lake project should be starting mid this month, weather permitting, and that's all I have this month. Thank you.
Bill, Community Patrol.
Can I ask a question? Just, Eric, are there any main large events occurring in this room during the parking lot work that's being done on the lodge here?
Probably.
Is there a
I don't have the list handy with me, but there let's put it this way. We sat down with every activity, every banquet, every function scheduled for every amenity, every parking lot, especially this one, and we picked the window of least impact on this parking lot specifically because of the least amount of events happening, and we have broken this project up into 4 phases. The first phase is down by Sunset Beach, and the other 3 sections of the parking lot will remain open during that time, so it'll be almost no impact. At no time will more than 1/4 of the parking lot be closed, and we may have 1 or 2 hard closures, but
I assume, I understood, and I haven't verified this, I understood there were 2 main events occurring. What you're planning is perfect. I have no problem with that, and I assume that there are alternate parking plans to support those events if it's necessary. That's something the POA will work with the organizers and provide.
We sat down with the contractor and activities and the entire calendar before we made a phasing plan, and so yes, every possible thing that's happening here and going to be impacted has been taken into account.
And alternate plans can be put in place if necessary.
If necessary, yes.
Thank you.
How many parking spots do we presently have, and how many are we going to end up with?
Steve, you know that off the top of your head? He probably does.
163.
Was it 163 to what? 230. Thank you.
I'm glad you knew that.
Yeah, we even hope it looks, but we hope we get a little bit more a nice design on all this. And we're going to get some handicap sidewalks and access down to the ADA, down to the water. So it's just not paving. We're going to do an overall upgrade to the parking lot, which took a little more time to do, but we think it'll be well worth it, especially the extra 60-odd spaces.
Yeah, like I said, of the $3.5 million paving project, there's about $1.3 million is being spent here on this peninsula. And if you haven't gone to the paving project page on our website, I invite you to. The full set of plans is there. There's an abbreviated set of plans, which just kind of gives you a bird's eye view of the new parking layout and a walking path that actually is a complete walking path all the way around the peninsula. There'll be a new ADA compliant ramp down to the rental docks, all new retaining walls in between each tier of parking, basically a whole new parking layout. So it's a massive renovation, and it's over 1/3 of the contract. So if you're not familiar with it, I invite you to go to the website and check the plans out. It's going to be a very nice improvement here, and this is one of the worst parking lots we had, and everybody's like, when are you going to do this one? Well, we waited for just the right time, and now is the right time, and we've very carefully scheduled it for the least impact. So it'll be done by Fiesta Day.
Before you get off that, when are we moving over to the road, Canyon Lake Drive North? The portion, do we have a kind of an approximate start date over there?
We haven't received the schedule from the contractor yet for that portion.
Okay.
We'll get the community notice.
Okay, so it won't be during the parade?
No.
That was a joke. Thank you.
I can assure you it won't be during the parade.
Okay, I think that's all for the comments. Bill, Community Patrol?
Good evening. Prepared statement. So for the last few months, here at Canyon Lake, they've been busy months. Inside the community, we are dealing with parking lot repaving, the installation of speed display signs, building improvements, gate entry changes, and more. And these are the situations that are within our control. You know, along with these situations, we are also dealing with issues and inconveniences from outside the community, such as ever-increasing traffic in the area, due to all the new housing and development going on out there. Crazy weather at times, like the rains that caused our North Causeway to flood. Illness from colds and flu that affect the workforce and causes us to be short-staffed from time to time. And sometimes just terrible incidents, like the accident from last week, just outside our gates, that backed up the gates for quite a while and tragically ended the lives of 3 individuals. My point, everyone today is busy. All right, residents are busy. Their guests are busy. The various POA departments are busy, as you just heard. There's a lot going on these days, but I believe that the goal or the desired end result is for the betterment of the community, for everyone's sake. And I believe that most here would agree with me. But there's also something else that I believe, and that is that at times like these, when everyone is so busy, that we forget to notice or acknowledge the small things, like saying thank you. So I'll say it now, and I feel confident that I speak for all the POA departments when I say to the community, thank you. Thank you for your patience through these transitions. Thank you for your understanding and your cooperation. It really is appreciated. And please know that Community Patrol will continue to do our best to help make the transition as smooth as possible. That's it for today.
Bill, a couple questions about the report.
Sure.
October speed trailer. It says October 110, November 326, and then December back down to 91. Did we have even deployment of the trailers during that time, or did we have get in your car and go speed month on November, and the other months nobody did that?
No, we actually had some mechanical difficulties.
And then, what was the other question I had? This one that says time and minutes for the two-guest lane entry protocol. Is that just the staff hours or staff time that was assigned each month for putting an extra person in the lane?
Basically, yes, but those are the actual minutes that we spent in that two-lane protocol.
Okay. Yep. And then last one, confiscated guest passes. 237 October, 328 November, 369 December. Are those truly confiscated, like they didn't really belong to the person and we were taking them out of the hands of somebody who wasn't authorized? Or does this include just expired passes that get collected?
No, actually, the former. These numbers are actually passes that we took from individuals because they didn't have a driver's license or was not that individual.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? No.
I think we're good.
All right.
Corporate Counsel's next, and Teresa, just if you could spend a minute, this is a good point to talk about our February 12th meeting at 6 o'clock here. It is the Lake Lease Town Hall. So if some of you've got the notice about the litigation on the Lake Lease, Teresa, I believe, will be here on the 12th, or Howard?
No, actually, it's going to be Sean, and I'm going to let Sean discuss the purpose of the meeting and what will be discussed.
Okay, so I'll hand this over to Corporate Counsel, and let's see if we can get people to show up for this meeting. This would be a great one for those people that have lakeshore properties to come down and have a conversation.
Thanks, Dale. Good evening, everyone. So I'm pleased to announce that Caney Lake Property Owners Association and Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District have executed a settlement to the pending litigation between them. The settlement requires court approval, and the lakefront owners will be part of that process. So we do hope that anyone interested, lakefront owners or otherwise, come down on February 12th so we can discuss it a little bit further. Thank you. 6 p.m.
Okay, and yes, please come. If you have any questions, this will be your best chance to get your questions answered, and you can make the decisions you need to make. So please come down. Next one is sports reports. Staff reports is written. I think they're in the folder. So now we can move on to board comments. Tom, you want to start?
Sure. Reminder that we have budget workshops this Thursday and next Thursday for people to come and see what the next fiscal period is projected to be. Always try and encourage people to come down and at least offer your comments and suggestions for us. It's an opportunity to see kind of where we're at and what we're doing and dealing with ourselves and our budgets. Another reminder too that we have the switch over for the second gate, the east gate, will occur next week, is it? And the biggest delay that seemed like it occurred when we did the switch over at Northgate this last month was members get to the gate and can't get in the RFID lane, and then they also think that the sticker is still a valid method of entry, and they find out that it's not. So the reminder that your decal that's on your window is not the way to get into the lake. You need to either have your POA card or your RFID. And if you get to the gate and you don't have those things, or you're in the wrong lane, you're probably going to get directed to turn around. And the worst thing you could do is sit there and argue with the people that are doing their job, because that's all they want to do is get people flowing through the gate. And if you're not in the right place or you don't have the right credentials, you're going to get turned around. I understand that Corey and Member Services will probably be on site at the East Gate when this transition is going through in the first week or so to help people that maybe don't have an RFID yet to get one applied on the spot. You'll still have to go through the gate the first time with no credentials being in your car, but once you get through, you can get Member Services to help you out. Thank you.
Okay, Jeannie?
I don't really have much to add other than what Tom said. Budget workshop, budget workshop, budget workshop. Thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, as far as the budget workshop goes, I'm really looking forward to hearing how finance has been able to settle out the needs we have to continue to update our community and to enhance our amenities. It's going to have a look forward and what we can look forward to. It's going to mean investments on all of our parts. I'm very pleased to see that our community is interested in improving its appearance and improving how we serve our members. So I would encourage you to participate in that and to support the kind of outcome that is required. It does cost money, but this is something that we want to do for our community. I want to just say a couple words about the sanctioned clubs and the activity clubs. I don't see that as a primary and a secondary situation. I see that as a reality of what we want to do and be faithful to how this was set up originally many years ago with our club sanctioning and the benefits that they get. We are very interested in all of our clubs and to have and continue to encourage as many clubs as possible. It shows activity in our community. It allows us to get together in areas where we have common interest. It supports the notion that we are one community working together to provide services and amenities to each other that we can all enjoy. So don't think there's something secondary about that activity club. It's just a realization of who meets the sanctioning requirements and who doesn't, and how that flows through. We still very, very much appreciate all of that. I mentioned that I can't hear, and I had trouble here. I'm really, really looking forward to the new sound system and looking forward to having an integrated system, both with what the clubs have helped sponsor, which is a new sound system to support our main activities, but also a sound system that I believe is going to allow us to use this room more effectively and be able to hear, and hopefully I'll be able to hear better. My apologies for saying anything silly. It just isn't on purpose. The last thing I want to say is our election is coming up. You probably saw the email notice that notices of intent will become available on February 10th. It's extremely important that we have a number of people that stand up and say they're willing to serve. I can say, having joined, that it's a little bit of a black box when you get started to figure out just exactly what you need to do to be a part of this process. I'm very happy to talk to anyone about that process or about the time commitment. I don't see it overwhelming at all. I see our community and our board working very closely with our staff, and I think it's a very constructive and encouraging experience. So I would encourage anyone who feels that they can contribute to our community and contribute to its enhancement to consider running for the board. And like I said, give me a call or send me an email. I'd be glad to talk to you and erase any blackness that there is out there about how you run or how you get signs or just what you have to do. So thank you.
All right, Jim?
Yeah, one of the things that we look at doing is showcasing our community. And this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, one of the biggest showcases we are going to have is our tennis courts. And you've probably seen some of the signs around here. It's a USTA tournament. First time it's ever happened here in Canyon Lake. Players be coming from as far as San Diego, Riverside. There's actually some prize money in it, so you'll see some fairly good tennis players from beginners right up to probably about a 5-0 level. And I know that the pickleball community, since they started the pickleball, they have taken a little more interest in competition and the levels of play. And so there are a lot of tennis players that play pickleball now too. And but if you want to see some really top-notch players, come out Saturday or Sunday. Sunday should be the finals. Earlier preliminary rounds will be on Saturday, but you should see some good tennis. And again, if you see some of our brochures on here, when you look at the amenities we have from an aerial view, this is one of the most beautiful places that you can be, whether it's our golf course, our tennis courts, our pickleball courts. This is a special place, and I think this is really important as we try to let the community know the amenities we have. I travel a lot, even in Orange County. Nobody has any idea where Canyon Lake is, and they're only 20, 30, 40 miles from here. It's amazing. So anyway, that's what we're trying to do, promote our community and the people that we have in here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, it'll be exciting Saturday and Sunday, so if you're not doing anything, just swing on by. It's actually free, obviously. You can just, and there's plenty of great seating down there, so you can watch some pretty high-level tennis going on, so I want to invite you down. The RFID at the North Gate, it's been a little bit of a challenge. I saw the security staff out there making extra efforts to get the members through the gates. I think after all this, I think we're starting to see all the members get into the flow of coming in the gate. I think it's exciting, and I think it'll provide us both a more affordable level of service, a better level of service, as we can make sure those other members in the other gates can be looked at closely. So this is kind of exciting. We have learned a few lessons. I think one of the things we're looking at, and I think maybe even started putting in, is we're going to put another RFID reader in at the North Gate, so both lanes will have that capability. So that should be helpful. As we switch over to the other gates right now, both the main gate and the east gate both have 2 lanes that are RFID capable, right? Yeah, so it should be a good thing. I'll tell you what the surprising thing for me was when they went all RFID at the North Gate, suddenly the line at the main gate RFID lane got longer and longer and longer, and it's kind of amazing how fast cars are getting in. I came in tonight, and I was coming in from the Menifee side and the Elsinore side. That turning light must have been on for like 15 minutes, because those long line of cars filled up that area to get in. And I turned the corner after it was my turn to go in, and I got through the gate probably within 20 seconds. So that gate absorbed had to be 30 cars in about 45 seconds. So it was pretty impressive. So I think in the long run, this RFID changeover is painful, but once it happens, I think we'll be really much happier with the level of security, as our security guards will be able to focus on the people that come in with the passes, and they won't be spending times letting the members and checking out the members that come in. So that's pretty big. This is a personal thing somewhat, and that's the coronavirus is here. It's really hitting China. We're starting to get cases in the United States. Eventually, we'll probably all be exposed in the next handful of years. But the key to avoiding the virus is to wash your hands, keep your hands washed, watch yourself in public. We are kind of a huggy, handshaking kind of community. So this may be a period where maybe we ought to do a little less handshaking, a little less hugging. So those are the key things that are really going to make a difference on keeping the virus from spreading rapidly. There's always the mask, but from everything I've read, it said the number one thing is keep those hands washed. And if you can't get to soap and water, get to the disinfectant that has 60% alcohol. The longer we can keep that at bay, the longer it gives our scientists a chance to develop vaccines and medicines that'll help us, so that it'll become maybe equivalent to the common cold. Should it come and we ever get it, that by that time we should have medications available, so that it'll be uncomfortable, but it won't be life-changing. So please head on down to CVS and get the big jug of disinfectant for your hands, and in the long run, we'll all be happier. And again, the budget's coming up. We want to invite you all to come down and hear about what your money's going for and what we're going to do with it. So Anyway, thank you all for coming. That should be it for this part of the session. We're going to recess and come back in a couple of minutes. We have a couple of people who want to talk about their appeal their ACC issues, and so we're going to take about, a 10-minute recess, and we'll be back in 10.
But Dale, we can still drink Corona, right? We can still drink Coronas?
Okay. Probably pretty safe at this point.
Okay.
All right. All right, Cheryl, John, you're here and you're ready to.
Do we need to bang the gavel to reconvene?
No, we recessed. We didn't. I don't believe. Okay, so Cheryl, we have Sharon Renzi.
That is correct. Are the Renzis here? Okay, great. Just wanted to go ahead and have a seat up there. Mrs. Renzi is here appealing the ACC denial for a 4-foot fence/gate. Actually, it's just a fence, I believe. And why she's appealing on that is because it's on the lakeside, and lakeside rules basically state that it can only be 3 feet in height, and her fence happens to be 4 feet. What happened was that she had submitted an application to replace the wrought iron fence in the gate in September of last year. And the ACC went out to look at the property and noticed that the fence had already been put up. So that was one of the problems, is the fence was already put up. The committee reviewed the application twice. The first time and the second time, they both had to deny it based off of the CC&Rs of the fence height only being 3 feet high. The staff is recommending the Board of Directors uphold the ACC decision for the member to cut down the last, I think it's not 3, but I think it's 2.5 panels, but I'll have John confirm that. But before we do that, what I would like to do is allow Ms. Renzi the time to go ahead in her appeal.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually brought some pictures because the pictures that you all put in the minutes here are lovely, and it shows the fence that I replaced, but it doesn't actually show the fence on the other side that hasn't been replaced. And the fence on the other side is actually, and I did this, I don't know if you want to look at the pictures, but I actually took pictures and measured the fence on the other side when I moved in. Oh, yeah. I actually have 2 copies, but I took pictures of the fence on the side that wasn't replaced, which is still wrought iron, and it actually measures about 40 inches tall. And when you measure the actual panels, which I also measured for the new one, it's about 40 inches. So it's about 4 inches over apparently what it should be. And I sincerely apologize. You know, I prepared something in writing thinking I had read all the rules. I'm a lawyer, and I still didn't see the final rule that said there's a change in the right before the water. So it's completely my fault. I misread it, and honestly, I had a miscommunication with the gentlemen who were putting my fence up. So by the time I started and they notified me that it was not in violation, they had already finished it. So they were moving a little bit faster than I did in the process. And I apologize, I'm new to the community. I've only been here since August of this year. So I've now learned all the processes that I have to go through when I apply for things. And I do appreciate that process, and I understand why you do it. If I cut down the side, though, that you're asking me to cut down for those few inches to make it 36 inches, then I really have to cut down the other side, which has been pre-existing when I bought the house. Otherwise, I'm going to have one fence that's lower than the other fence. So that's my concern, is at this point, aesthetically, it's going to be, to me, it's aesthetically not going to be very nice because the pre-existing fence was apparently not in regulation. So that's kind of my position on it. So
Any other comments, John?
Well, I kind of commented a little bit about it last month. We actually measured, the fence does not go all the way down to the lake, so there's 3 panels, but only one panel is about a half a panel in width. But the measurement is actually from the grade to the top of the fence, and it was 4 feet when we measured it, so.
Okay, so I apologize. I measured from the bottom of the fence to the top
yeah.
of the fence, so now I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, so there's several inches underneath an air gap, and it is open fencing, so we had to reject it because it is a CCNR violation.
But apparently the original fence was in violation, and I bought the house actually in June and then moved in August because I had some other things that were being done inside the house. And honestly, that fence on the left side was so rotted out, it was a concern to me because I have dogs, and I and honestly, shortly after I moved in, the gate in the front, I opened it and it fell right off the wall. So it was in very poor repair. So there really wasn't an option for me to not replace it, but it actually matches the height of the one on the other side. So that's going to be the difficulty, is it's going to look strange to me if I cut down one side, but the other side is higher.
When we were out at the property, we obviously, you pointed out to us the fence on the right. We did not measure it, so I don't know. If I recall correctly, there was approval for the fence on the right. I had the staff look that up, but we couldn't find an approval at all for the fence on the left, which is, you claim was there when you replaced it and put this white fence in.
Right.
So the fence is open, which meets that qualification, but like I said, there's 3 sections there that are a little bit too tall.
And essentially, your recommendation is they just trim off a foot off the fence?
Correct, so that it measures 3 feet from above the grade. So it's about a foot off. Posts can remain high. It's not bit important. We don't look at that. And the way the CCNR is written, it says fence. It doesn't include the posts.
I would like to add that we did a lot of research in the file, and in the file back in 1998, there's an actual plan. And Lynn, if you wouldn't mind going to our plan, I want to say it's going to be Exhibit D. Okay. So in the file in 1998, there was a permit that was approved for a 3-foot wall, a 2-foot wrought iron fence, and a 5-foot fence. And so when I was looking at the actual plan, it almost appears as if it was the same plan, or actually the correction of where she put in the new fencing gate all the way going down. So, and this is the actual plan that was approved back in 1998. It doesn't necessarily mean that that was right to do. Oftentimes we find that certain things may have been approved against the CCNRs for whatever reason, but at this present time, the committee does not approve things against the CCNRs. So I just wanted to give that tidbit of information to the board.
We routinely approve 6-foot fences because homeowners don't want to make them 5 feet. And we have a case here that a mistake was made. We end up with a fence that's maybe 4 feet, maybe it's 46 inches. I just wonder if there's a contradiction in what we approve and don't approve. And why would we insist that this be a 3-foot fence if somebody wants a 4-foot fence? When our CCNRs say that, when we allow a 6-foot fence to replace a 5-foot fence.
I believe the intent, of course, was to keep the lake side free and open, and that's the reason why they wanted to have it low fencing on the lake portion, and then, of course, having it open, meaning wrought iron fence, or as in what Mrs. Renzi has put in, where at least it has slats where you can see through it. I believe that was the intent. The 6-foot fences on what I like to call normal lots, that really is because a lot of people just want more privacy. Whereas, and you don't, I mean, if you were to look down the lake and if we were to put up 6-foot fences there, it would really obscure the view of the lake a lot. I'm not sure if that answers your question much, but the CCNRs do have the different fence heights. We have the different fence heights in the community setback in the front. We have it also going all the way up to 5 feet where the house is. And then when you're going down to the lake, once the house ends, that part there has to be 3 feet and open.
No, I understand that, and I support that. It just seemed that in one case we would allow an exception, in the other case we would not allow an exception, and it's at the owner's preference. This doesn't appear to me to affect the view or anything that's going on, but that's beside the point. The other question I wanted to ask is when you said you purchased this house just a little while ago, this last year?
I bought it in June and then moved in August.
Okay, and did we do an escrow inspection?
Yes, we did.
And did we note that the fences were too tall?
No.
No. No, we did
Is
not.
that something we would not normally do, or?
It's not something that all properties are done every single thing. I mean, if you were to think about it, it takes approximately about 20 to 40 minutes just to do an escrow inspection. And by sight, I don't think it really looked as if it was over height. I mean, and not to mention the fact that it was rusted and there was pictures of it being rusted. So we did notate that it needed to be fixed, I believe.
Right. Well, actually, I never got anything about that. I got something about some other things, like stucco repair that needed to be done, and that was all fixed. I think pretty much there was a couple other things, but they were minor. Really, the fence wasn't addressed, but it was in such horrible shape. I mean, once I had there was a whole bunch of vegetation along that fence, and once I had a lot of that cut back, I mean, it was clear, it was just rotted out completely. And in order to make it look nice, which I think it does now, to have two different heights on either side is not going to look as nice as it looks right now. I mean, there's no way that I will fix it if you tell me I have to, of course, but to me, it's kind of going to be less aesthetically pleasing if there's two different heights on each side, which means I'm going to have to replace the other side, which isn't in need of replacing at this point.
Now, if you might, we were going to recommend last month, unfortunately, I don't believe Ms. Renzi was able to make it,
Right.
to do a recorded variance for the height. We're talking about 2.5 panels that are over height at this point, given the fact that Ms. Renzi is fairly new to the community. We do that for all community members that are new coming in when they have to inherit things. I believe that if Ms. Renzi had known the rules, she probably would not have had to go through this process. But that is a possibility that the board could choose to elect to do a recorded variance.
Just to comment on the recorded variance, they're expensive, right?
It probably would cost her less money to do a recorded variance than it would to cut down the fence.
I'd be
I
happy.
thought they were like $200.
They're $225.
It's $245. Cut down the fence would probably cost you about $100.
Well, I don't think so, because if I cut that down, then I've got to cut, I'm just from my perspective, I mean, you guys may not require me to make it look the same on each side, but I'm going to want to do that. So it's going to cost me more than that, because the other side's wrought iron, and that's going to cost me to have somebody come out and fix that too. So I'd rather do the recorded variance if it's an option.
But we're not looking at the right fence for this.
Right, but it's in violation, and it has been.
Yeah.
So that's my concern, is that if you sell somebody a house and it has that fence, I assumed, and as most people would assume, that it was properly done in the first place. So I replace it and ask the fence guy to look at, doing something that looks like the one that's on the right. We do that, and then I find out it's in violation. So really, the whole thing was in violation before, and the homeowner prior to me never had to deal with that, so.
Yeah, but the problem is this other section is new that was put in. I understand one of our things is when you put in a fence or anything outside, you have to get a permit. If we would have gone to get a permit, they would have said, to get it approved, they would have given you the height. And that's the nature of the beast. And we understand that there are periods of boards where they've been very flexible on CCNRs, in my mind, probably too flexible. And in my mind, you drive down the community and it's often very chaotic looking. And our CC&Rs is that principle that says, we're going to make things so that the community doesn't look all chaotic as hell. So
Right.
in my mind, leaning back to keep the CC&Rs is kind of respecting them and holding to that standard, with the exception of there's some exceptions in the ruling, which is usually some sort of topography thing, which doesn't really apply here. But in my mind, I'd like to hold on to the CC&Rs. I know it's an inconvenience. I know it'll look different on both sides, but they both look different anyway, because one's wood and one's going to be this white, probably vinyl fence, and the other one's going to be iron. So my preference is to stay with the CC&Rs, and we've had members spend a lot of money getting them in compliance with CC&Rs compared to this, and it always it's difficult when you go to somebody and say, you've got to spend $3,000 to get in compliance with CC&Rs, or $5,000. That's painful, but this is really going to be pretty inexpensive.
Oh, I get that. My concern is that, aesthetically, it's going to look bad, so then I'm going to have to apply to have the other fence done. So, I get where you're coming from, and it's totally my fault. I actually went to the committee, or went and applied for the permit when they started the fence, and then I was told different things. First of all, I was told you had to get the next homeowner next door to me, his approval, and they gave me all the information. So I did that, and I was just talking to him, and then I was told, wait a minute, you don't have to do that because you're simply replacing the existing fence. So you only have to submit this amount of material, which I did, and part of it was the plot line that you see there. So honestly, and I was waiting for their approval and then found out it wasn't going to get approved. So I did actually apply late, admittedly. But I do think that this is splitting hairs at this point, and there are other fences in the community that are not 3 feet at the water line. I've seen them. So if you're going to have me adhere, then I think everybody who has a fence that's higher than 3 feet and has a lake lot has to do the same thing.
I'd just like to add to what Dale said, is that we recognize that there's a lot of situations in the community that don't meet the CC&Rs. That's something that we can't do much about. We've in my mind, we've adopted a policy that said when a property changes hands, that's why we do the escrow inspection, we'll try to catch the violations.
Right.
And when I bought my property, I went through this and get those things corrected, because that's a moment in time where you can get things corrected. And we didn't catch it when we did your escrow inspection.
Right.
But then because you didn't get the permit and went through that other process, so the whole thing gets pretty convoluted. So then it becomes a philosophic question.
Right.
Does your fence for those 2 panels violates it's going to be like that now until you sell the house, and then somebody else is going to have to cut the thing down, probably.
Right.
So that's the situation that we face. We are trying to get the community online, and it is difficult.
Yeah, again, I think the rules are applied differently depending on, what the situation is, because I honestly, I don't complain about anything when I see things that are not being enforced, and I think, most of the community attempts to comply. But there are also fences that are falling down and nobody's doing anything about those. And I walk my dogs every day and see fences that are falling down in my neighborhood, and nobody is doing anything about that. Mine looks really nice. It's a very well-done fence, and I think it should be approved for a variance.
One of the things I learned when I came on the board just a few months ago was that there's a huge number of properties out there that are not in compliance, that are under fine. That we can't talk about it, but it's just the way it is. So I've come to believe that every time I see something that's not in compliance, that they're taking care of it.
All right.
Okay, because I think we've gone around in circles here. So the ACC committee, Cheryl, now you're recommending a recorded variance as a possible solution?
That was a suggestion. However, the recommendation that I'm going with is that to uphold the ACC committee. I'm saying, should the board wish to, show grace, and that a recorded variance could be offered.
Thank you.
Any more conversation? Do I hear a motion? Can I make a motion? I'll make a motion, we uphold the ACC recommendation. A second?
I'll second that.
Any more comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay, so I have one last question. Now that that's the case, what is the process if I wanted to appeal that? Or is there one? Or that's a final say-so?
The POA, the board is the final appeal within the POA.
So legally, I have no right to appeal it either. Is that what you're saying?
Teresa, can you help us with this one?
Well, there is a process called you've been through the IDR process. If you want to seek legal recourse, you would have to go through what's called alternative dispute resolution, that's ADR, before you seek a court action.
Okay. So how do I apply for the ADR?
You have to
process?
make a demand of the association for alternate dispute resolution.
Okay.
That's some third party that would be involved with the resolution, whether it be a mediator or an arbitrator.
Okay. Well, I hereby make a demand verbally, and I will also put it in writing then. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. So that request or demand for ADR goes to whom?
You could submit it to the board.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, we have another member.
Yes, we do. We have Mr. Scott Fellholter, who is appealing an ACC denial for his barbecue island in the side setback. During an inspection, unfortunately, for his pool that he is now putting in, the ACC committee observed a barbecue in the side setback. Lynn, if we can go ahead and go to exhibit, hold on a second here, I want to do the picture. Exhibit D. So as I was saying, during an inspection of the pool that's now in process, the committee went out there and found that this barbecue island, which is in the side setback, it is clear, at least clear to me, that in going through the file, you'll see that there is a side property line wall along with some coping. That brick there that was there, this is the same brick that was used actually for the barbecue itself. And I believe, if I'm correct, the wall was put up sometime around 1998.
When the property was built.
Yeah,
my contractor.
and I believe that was the time. So I believe that actually what had happened is that they had some extra brick and they decided to throw up a barbecue island at this point. So Mr. Fellholter is here. He would like to obviously keep the barbecue, and I'm going to go ahead and offer up some time for Mr. Fellholter to state his appeals.
I have additional pictures. Can I hand those to you? So I was notified on November 27th that my barbecue, which is existing and non-compliant, and I am requesting approved variance. In the letter I received from your folks, the rules are to preserve the value and promote harmony amongst the neighbors. I do have a letter from the only neighbor that's affected, as you can see in the pictures. Now, in the initial image that was displayed prior to the pool construction and the fence, there's now a white vinyl fence that is in the pictures now that we've already installed that precludes someone from falling onto the neighbor's property. There is an elevation change of approximately 82 inches. If the barbecue were to be removed, One of the first things is that it would be a great expense, and the second thing is that there is a topography differential of that 82 inches between the level of the concrete as you're walking down the side yard to the lower yard of both my neighbor's house and the bottom of my property. The property, we have not changed hands. I've owned the property since it was built originally in 1996. It's 24 years ago.
Pointer.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so.
Do you want to tell me which plan, sir?
Go to you had a picture prior, there you go, right there. So that fence is the one that's been there, the wrought iron fence, and it's below her, Miss Fry's, Denise Fry's, and so there is no visual situation there. If we were to remove this barbecue, as you can see in the image, there is another 42 inches from this level all the way down to the bottom. This fence here would also, if this were removed, a new barrier would be required to be built to prevent myself, visitors, or anybody coming onto the property walking down these steps to prevent them from either falling onto that property or this area down below here. So the barbecue was built when the house was built 24 years ago. And as you can see, with the same split face block that the original walls and the barbecue and everything else were done, it is made of split face. There is a granite countertop on it, and it is stainless steel, so it's not in a state of disrepair. The images that I gave you today have different plumbing and stuff of the construction project of the pool that we're currently, and it's not normally in that state, as you can see by the new steps formed and all of that. It is existing non-conforming, and therefore it was allowed initially in some way because the house was approved at the same time at the issuance of the certificate of occupancy when I purchased a house new from a contractor. And a variance or easement must have been established at that time. Otherwise, I would not have been issued a certificate of occupancy. There is case law relevant to my appeal, and the theory of the zoning ordinance is that the non-conforming use is detrimental to some of those interests, either the health, the safety, or the welfare. The safety issue is the presence of the barbecue prevents a person from falling forward when you're walking down the side yard onto those steps that you can see in the images in the picture, and it would prevent them from falling that 82 inches down onto the lower topographic area below because we are waterfront property. Prior to this, that fence was there. As you can see now, the new white fence is there, and so nobody can either fall into the pool or come into the pool area, either an animal or anything like that, to be put in harm's way. The existing barbecue equally acted as a barrier at the similar height when the existing original ordinance requiring a fence for the safety and welfare of visitors on the property while navigating the property. This would also justify an allowance or variance approval from the board. Although found to be detrimental to the important public interest, non-conforming issues have precedent in our community and have been allowed to continue based on the belief that it would be unfair and perhaps unconstitutional to require an immediate cessation of a non-conforming use. It begs the question, is the existing rule unequally being enforced? And so the HOA, is not supposed to carry out its duties in a manner that's arbitrary, capricious, or unreasonable. In other words, the community rules must be reasonably enforced. HOAs should not be selectively enforcing community rules against particular homeowners. And HOA rules must be enforced equally as possible. I'll just cite the letter from my neighbor, who is the only one who would see that, or who sees it, or who could be impacted by it. And I'll give you a copy of this or let you see it after. She says, "To whom it may concern, Canyon Lake POA board staff. My name is Denise Fries. My contact information is X. I'm the direct neighbor next to Mr. Fellholter, the owner at 22415 Whirlaway Court, which borders the barbecue in question. He has built a barbecue no greater than the height of a previous shared fence, which was our border that has been in place for the past few years since I purchased. I've owned this property for several years, and it does not create an issue nor concern for me, and frankly has acted as a barrier to prevent anyone from falling onto my property or further down his own walkway. It's no different than the required height of a normal fence required for waterfront homes in the past, and I am the only neighbor who could be affected by it, and I do not oppose it being approved permanently for his property address. In fact, I endorse it. More recently, we have shared the cost of a joint fence, 5 foot in height, as per the code, to prevent anyone from accidentally entering his yard and his pool, which virtually completely blocks the barbecue from anyone, including myself, and poses no dangers or risks regard Denise Fries and her attached phone number and information. I would just like to cite, lastly, it would be a tremendous expense for me, and there are topographic areas, and I have not changed hands in the ownership of my property. And my assumption all along was that the barbecue was built with my house. May I hand you the letter from the neighbor? Does the board have any questions for me?
I have some with Cheryl. I have a question for Cheryl, and I appreciate you've said that there's other board members that may want to ask you some questions. So I get the impression from the story that the barbecue's been there a long time. Possibly it was there at the original construction of the house. Is that reasonable?
It's very reasonable to determine as to when it was built. I don't know, but we do know that the actual blocks were the same blocks as the property line wall.
So, how did you discover it? You were inspecting the pool, or?
There's a pool plan that Mr. Fellholter had put in, so the committee went out to go measure, make sure before they actually approved it, and that's when it was found.
The committee went out there to look at it, and I can't remember exactly why. We weren't looking for a barbecue. It just happened to be something that we noticed. This is basically CC&R violation. It's in the 5-foot setback, and it doesn't matter what the neighbor's opinion is, and also there's not a topography issue. If you decide that he has to remove it, he will have to put in, by code, he needs a 42-inch safety fence on top of that wall. It's interesting to note that the cap on the block was continued underneath it, which is kind of unusual. But the block does match, but like I said, it is a CC&R violation.
What's the difference between a block wall that's a little bit thicker than usual and a fence that you said he'd have to replace?
A block wall is, or I should say a block wall or a barbecue is considered a structure. And
well, what makes this a structure? That looks to me like it's an inserted barbecue. Yeah. Is that a new insert that you used?
No, it's an inserted barbecue, yes.
But that's not 28 years old, right?
It's been there ever since I bought the house, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, stainless steel barbecue.
So why isn't this? Excuse me. Why isn't this a insert barbecue sitting on the fence?
It's a visual. It's a visual thing that it's not quite accurate. The barbecue is actually 90 degrees to the property line, as shown on the plot plan.
You brought us pictures. I can see. I understand. And he needs to have a barrier there when you come down the stairs.
Correct.
We would require him to have that. So we're going to have him tear this out because it's an L shape. It's got a barbecue sitting on it. We're going to make him build a fence, or the city's going to have him build a fence. So and the whole thing is 28 years old. It doesn't seem to. It's something that we have now discovered. In my mind, we haven't been going out and making people tear these kind of things out. It's when they build them without permit that we've been doing that.
Yeah. But when the committee went out there, we didn't know the age of it or anything. We assumed that it was freshly built.
But you're not telling us that you don't think it was freshly built. Is that right?
Well, we don't know exactly when it was built. The only thing we're doing is looking at the structure itself. The barbecue looked new. It's been taken care of. We're looking at back at 98. That's a long time ago when this wall work was done. So
And you've owned the house since 1998?
I purchased the house from a general contractor in 1998, Carlos something or other.
And this thing has been there the entire time?
Yes, sir.
So my question is, what is the likelihood that the contractor built the home? The ACC sent someone out to inspect the home to see that it was built to the POA permitted process, and at that time, it was signed off.
Okay, so if you go to Exhibit B, that shows you the plans from 1998 for the slab walkway, split-face block, and existing fence. And there is no barbecue there. So I'm assuming in that time frame of 1998, this is the plan that they would have used. And so the barbecue may have been done after the fact. So all I can go based off is what we have on file and then what's currently there.
kind of correlate, the barbecue is set where the word steps is on that platform. As you come down the steps, there's a platform, and that's where the barbecue was placed.
I'll just talk about what I've been thinking. I don't really have a great direction, but we had the woman here that was here earlier had a 4-foot fence on the side of the house that was old. And we didn't go to her and say, you know what, it's a 3-foot fence, you need a 3-foot fence. You go ahead and take a saw and cut down that fence that's been sitting there for 25 years and get it down to 3 feet. We did see her new one, which violated, and we said, you know what, that's recent, and you should have got a permit and known. It just seems like it's very different when there was a fair likelihood that our guy walked out there 25 years ago and said, oh, yeah, you meet the standard, signed it and walked out. We don't know if he did or didn't.
That's absolutely right. We don't know.
But in my world, I'm kind of seeing it as a 50-50 shot. Could have gone one way or another. We don't have any evidence really saying that didn't happen. I think what we have is a statement from the gentleman that said it was there when he moved in, which gives me the impression that the VOA went out and did an inspection, and they approved that in its location. That's what I would see as reasonable. Any other board comments? Or?
I move that we approve this appeal based on the age of the situation and the fact that it's been there for 28 years and that we are not routinely going out and requiring people to correct CC&R violations until the property has changed hands or until they have done something with new construction.
I'll second.
Any other board comments? My only comment is that there's a pretty high likelihood at some point the POA stamped it and signed it. John, you weren't there at the time. I'm sure you wouldn't do it. Cheryl, you weren't there at the time. You wouldn't allow it. But at the time, I believe it's most likely that the POA inspector walked out and he looked around and he said it's okay. And that's, it's kind of, I hate that double jeopardy. Hey, we're going to say it's okay one day, but the next day it's like, well, the rules changed yesterday. So I don't think that's exactly fair. So that's my comments. We have a first and a second. Any other board comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5 in favor, motion carried.
Okay. Is that all for tonight? So we're ready to, we do have a little scheduling to talk about. There's really nobody here, but I think we did talk about the schedule already.
Thank you, Board.
Yes, and I should announce, I'm sorry, there are a few typos on our agenda and the dates that we have in our upcoming board workshops. So to recap, Our budget workshop on February 6th is on Thursday, not on Tuesday. And then we have Wednesday, February 12th is our Lake Lease Town Hall meeting. And Thursday, February 13th is our budget workshop. Thank you.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Move to appeal, move to adjourn. Get the word right.
I'll second that one.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Sir, do you want your pictures? Do you want these pictures?